The big problem we have in economics is we keep teaching economic students that the economy is a car and the interest rates are the gas pedal, and this is just totally wrong.
So Dr. Frank, 2 years ago you wrote this article on the current illusion of prosperity. Since then, what has changed?
Well, I would say that the crisis has been delayed. It hasn't been canceled. And I would say that today, relative to when I wrote this in 2015, the situation is actually a lot worse. And that's because we're trying to solve a debt problem with more debt. If we look at total household debt, it is now equal to $12.68 trillion, which is a level just 1% below what it was in the third quarter of 2008. The difference today is that the composition has changed. We've had a significant increase in auto loans and in student loans. And the brisk pace of auto sales has come essentially by this increase in, we had a 9% increase in auto loans in 2016, which followed similar increases in 2014 and 2015. And most of these auto loans, I would say not most, but I would say a large percentage increase has been due to subprime borrowers. In other words, we have a lot of auto loans have gone to people who have credit scores below 620. And they've become a more and more important part of auto loan origination. And the problem is that from the latest New York Fed data is that the delinquency rates are going up. And we currently have 6 million people who are either in default on their auto loans or are over 90 days in arrears, okay? So that's a significant problem. We have the same thing, so this is not only a US problem, it's also a European problem. If we look at the UK, auto loans increased 12% in 2016, and basically auto loans have gone from 11 billion pounds to over 31 billion pounds. So it's not just a US problem. Now when we look at student debt, we've had basically a fivefold increase in student loans over the last 14 years. And we currently have a 27% delinquency rate. So that's also something that's very concerning. If we look at other areas, corporate borrowing has doubled, which means that corporations are much more fragile today than they were back in 2009. The reason is that you're much more fragile if you finance yourself with debt instead of equity. And we have a situation where corporate profits are declining even though the stock market is rising. So we basically have a situation where we have a lot of concerning areas that could lead us to a crisis.
So who should we be pointing the finger at? Who are the ones to blame?
Well, for me, the main culprit is the central bank. It's the easy monetary policy that led to the Depression of 1920, the Depression of 1930s, the Depression of 1937, and more recently, the Depression that followed the dot-com bubble and the Depression that followed the housing bubble that we had recently. And the problem we have is we continue to believe that we can reduce interest rates to boost demand. And it doesn't matter where this demand comes from. It doesn't matter if it comes in terms of boosting subprime auto loans, as long as we have additional demand. And that's a big mistake. The mistake we're making is that we don't realize what interest rates really are. And interest rates are the price of time preferences. And interest rates play a critical role in aligning output with demand across time. And if you interfere with interest rates, you interfere with the ability of prices to allocate resources where they're most needed by society. And the big problem we have in economics is we keep teaching economic students that the economy is a car and the interest rates are the gas pedal, and this is just totally wrong.
Now, finally, what needs to change and what should be done?
Well, like I said before, the crisis is not if we're going to have a crisis, it's a question of when. And there are basically, in my view, three possibilities. The first one is the most likely, is that we're going to do the exact same thing. In other words, we're going to print money. It seems to be the government's one-trick pony. Okay, that ultimately, though, will lead to hyperinflation, and we know that dictators such as Napoleon and Hitler came to power following the devastating impacts of the hyperinflation, both in France between 1790 and 1797, and the 1921-23 hyperinflation in Germany. The second possibility is simply for the government not to do anything. Let bad businesses fail, okay, let resources be freed up to where society wants it the most. The problem with that is that we have so much malinvestment that the pain is going to be almost unbearable. And I doubt that the government will just sit back and say, no, we need to let the capitalist system clear the malinvestments away. I think that's highly unlikely. The third option, which is something I talked about it in an article, and I actually did a TV interview on this, is the Chicago Plan. And in the Chicago Plan, we would also print money. The difference is that we would force banks to hold 100% reserves. And in doing so, what we would do is we would, I would say, reduce the pain that we're going to have to go through, and at the same time, set up the economic system so that it's a lot more stable for our children.
Well, thank you, Dr. Frank. As always, it's a pleasure having you here.
I always enjoy being here.
And thank you at home for watching. Don't forget to click on our channel for more interviews with Dr. Frank Hollenbeck. Goodbye for now.